So how would you feel if you were out looking at homes with your agent and you found out after the fact that one of your visits had been secretly recorded by the seller of that property? And if you've ever sold a home, I can pretty much guarantee that you've at least thought of secretly recording your showings, and maybe you even went so far as to actually do it. But is it legal? Let's break down what you can and can't do when it comes to recording showings on your home. It's time to learn. Let's go. Okay, so the idea for this video actually came from a story that made the news very recently. You may have seen it. The gist of it is that there was an agent from Kamloops, BC, who was inside a property, he's waiting for his buyer clients to arrive, and he ended up being caught on hidden camera going through the seller's fridge and taking a huge swig out of a jug of milk before putting it back. I think I speak for everyone when I say that that's really freaking disgusting. Like milk, really? You couldn't drink anything else? You couldn't just stick your head under a tap? Anyways, really gross. That agent ended up having to pay a fine of $20,000 for his actions. And to add insult to injury, when his buyer clients found out about what he did, they fired him and then they hired a different agent to buy that very same home. So I think we can all agree that what the agent did was wrong, right? But when I saw the article, I couldn't help but think, I'm a little surprised that no one seemed to take issue with the fact that this seller appeared to be secretly recording their showing. And if you watch the video, you'll see it's in the article that I linked to. You'll see that the seller wasn't just recording video, they were capturing video and audio. And seeing that actually reminded me of something that happened in Ottawa a couple years ago. And so once again, you had an agent in Ottawa that was showing a property to a client of his. And in this case, the property was tenanted. Now, the tenant wasn't home for the showing, but she had set up a camera in her bedroom that recorded everything, audio and video. And what the camera ended up capturing was the agent and their client went into the bedroom, they started looking around, they looked into the closet, which by the way, totally normal, totally okay. When you're buying a house, the closet's part of it, so you're going to look into it. But what happened next was that the agent and their client started kind of mocking the person that lived there. They made fun of her clothes, they made fun of her decor, they talked about what kind of person she must be based on those things, etc., etc. Now, to be fair, most of the shitty mean girl style comments came from the agent's client. However, the agent was a willing participant in the conversation. He didn't actually shut it down. So what happens next is the tenant gets home, she sees the video and understandably gets really upset. So what does she do? You guessed it. She posts the video all over social media, along with a scathing message in which she not only names the agent, but she encourages everyone to ruin his business, right? So of course the post gets shared on Facebook, it gets shared on Reddit, Twitter. It starts to go viral kind of within Ottawa. It wasn't picked up by national media or anything like that, but it was definitely shared. A lot of people saw it. And you get all the regular comments from the typical agent bashing crowd, right? Agents are all scum, they're dishonest, they'll steal your milk, etc., right? Only in this case, unlike the milk chugger story from earlier, it wasn't the agent who got in trouble, it was the tenant. You see, the agent didn't technically break any rules. Was his behavior unprofessional? Yes, for sure. Did it paint him in a good light? Absolutely not. However, it's not against the law to call someone's clothing or their decor tacky. It is, however, illegal to secretly record a private conversation, share it with the public, identify the people in the recording, and then encourage everyone to ruin them. The tenant ended up being sent a cease and desist letter. They were threatened with legal action by the agent and the brokerage. The social media posts ended up being removed, and to my knowledge, that was the end of it. Everyone went their separate ways. All right, so we have two situations here in which agents and their clients are secretly recorded at showings, but we have two very different outcomes, which begs a question. What can you do and what can't you do when it comes to recording your showings? All right, so let me break it down for you. So I did some of my own research on this, and I also spoke to a trusted real estate lawyer, Michael Abrams, for anyone wondering. He's an awesome lawyer, even better person, highly recommend him. And here are some of the facts. So first of all, in Canada, we have very different laws when it comes to recording audio and video. Canadian laws are actually fairly detailed when it pertains to recording audio, right? Conversations. Now, of course, it's the law, so there's always going to be exceptions and special circumstances and all those things. But in general, in Canada, audio recordings are governed by something called the one-party consent rule. What that basically means is that you're allowed to record private conversations here between 2, 3, 4, however many people, so long as at least one of the people involved in that conversation is aware that the conversation is being recorded and consents to it. So in other words, if you and I are having a conversation and you're secretly recording me without my knowledge, it's totally fine because one, you're aware that you're recording the conversation, and two, obviously you consent because you're the one doing the recording. Now, what is not legal, however, would be for you to plant a recording device somewhere and then to record a private conversation that you're not a part of, say between myself and another person, maybe a buyer client of mine.
They put you in jail. No trial, no nothing. Journalists, we have a special jail for journalists. You're stealing, right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away. You're driving too fast, jail.
So the laws are fairly straightforward when it comes to audio, not so much when it comes to recording video. You see, in Canada, there aren't any really specific laws around video recordings, especially for private residences. In general, you don't have to get consent before capturing someone on video here. There are some rules. You can't film people in public places where there is a reasonable expectation of privacy, so like a bathroom, a dressing room. And you're also supposed to get consent if you're filming people for commercial purposes. Generally speaking though, it appears that there's really nothing illegal here about a seller secretly recording showings on their home so long as they're not capturing sound. Now, of course, again, when it comes to the law, there's always a lot of gray area. Nothing is ever totally cut and dry. One of the arguments that I've often heard about a seller who wants to film their showings is that they should require permission, because selling a home is really a commercial activity, and during your showings and during your open houses, the home basically becomes a public place, and given the nature of the business that you're doing, there should be a reasonable expectation of privacy during those showings and open houses. I've actually also heard a lot of people argue the opposite side of the debate. They say that it's actually totally fine to record your showings, including audio, so long as your recording devices are out in plain sight. Right? Everybody this day and age knows what a Ring doorbell looks like and what it does. They know what a Google Home camera looks like. They know what an Alexa looks like. They know what a pet cam, a nanny cam looks like. And again, they know what they do. So the argument is that if people are coming through your home and they see these devices and they elect to continue with the showing and their conversations, they're basically consenting to being filmed. Not sure I personally agree with that one, but again, I've heard it argued on multiple occasions. So with all that being said, there's a ton of gray area here. So what do you do if you're a buyer? And what do you do if you're a seller? Well, let's start with sellers. The advice of the lawyer that I spoke to, and it's also the advice of the Real Estate Council of Ontario, or RECO, which is the governing body for agents. They're basically like the body that polices us. What they recommend is that as a seller, if you are going to record your showings, you should, one, understand that you may be opening yourself up to liability, again, because of all the gray area. And two, they also recommend that if you're going to record, you should proactively disclose it to every single agent and buyer that comes through your home before they set foot into your home. This could mean putting up a large sign on the front door saying that you shouldn't enter the property if you do not consent to being recorded. It could mean having your agent call every agent who books a showing and letting them know that there are recording devices in the home. Now, in my personal opinion, that's a good course of action, but it's the second best course of action. The best course of action is don't record your freaking showings, all right? It's super creepy and it makes buyers feel really uneasy when they're going through the home. A buyer's typically not gonna write an offer on a home that they don't feel comfortable in, right? And a buyer's not gonna feel comfortable in the home if they feel like Big Brother is watching and listening to their every move. So if you have valuables in the home, I can understand wanting to keep them secure. My recommendation, take them off site when your home's on the market. Now, when it comes to my advice for buyers, unfortunately, in this day and age, my advice is to basically just assume that you are being recorded on all your showings. I always tell my buyer clients to be careful of the conversations that they have when we're going through a home. I actually really don't care a whole lot about what they say when they don't like a home. If we're being secretly recorded and a seller gets upset because we don't like the way they did their renos or the way they decorated their home, I view it as that's the seller's problem. I care a lot more about what my clients say when they like a home, right? If we're being recorded, I don't want my buyers gushing about how perfect the home is, how, out of the 58 homes we've seen, this is the only one they like. I don't want them talking about their budget, telling me they'll pay any price, they're willing to pay full price, maybe even more, et cetera, et cetera. Because those are all things that could really, really hurt us in a negotiation if the seller happened to be listening. And my recommendation is basically keep a poker face on while we go through the property. It's okay to have some conversations, but if we really want to talk about the specifics of making an offer, we're better off doing that offsite. So that about does it for this one. I always geek out on stuff like this. I hope you enjoyed this video as well and that you found it informative. If you have any questions about the real estate market, whether you're a buyer, seller, investor, or just real estate curious, I'm always happy to chat. You can use the Calendly link in the description to this video to directly access my calendar and book a call with me at a time that works best for you. Thanks again for watching. I'm Serge Papineau, and I'll see you next time because I'm recording you. Just kidding. That was creepy, but I'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks.